Okay, great. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome you all and thank you so much again for joining us this afternoon for this very important conversation. This afternoon, we'll be talking about youth mental health and psychological resilience amid the COVID-19 pandemic. We've seen growing fears, growing concerns, the uncertainty of the future. We've seen a number of redundancies, job closures, pay cuts. These are all things that are compounding to our psychological and mental health issues. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lizz Ntonjira, the founder of the Lizz Ntonjira Network, a platform that is purely on youth engagement, coaching, mentorship, and training. If you'd like to know more about it, please do go to www.lizzNtonjiranetwork.com. And today with me, I'm joined by two young, beautiful, and resilient young women who are so passionate about this particular topic. They have been practicing it for a number of years. They're thought leaders in that specific area and discipline. I'm joined by Diana Machi, who holds a master's in clinical psychology and currently runs her own practice called Machi Consult. She runs both individual and group therapy sessions. Machi, if you'd like to say hello and word or two.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to a very interactive session with all of you. Karibuni. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Machi. And I'm also joined by Venoranda Kuboka, a child and youth therapist who has over 9 years of experience in areas of sexual reproductive health, mental health, and advocacy. And she's also the founder of Youth Changes Kenya. Thank you so much for joining us, Venoranda. If you'd like to say a word or two. You're on mute.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I look forward to engaging with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Venoranda. I'm sure it's going to be such an impactful session. I want to remind everybody that we are streaming live, and you could please share your questions on the chat button below. You'll see a chat button, and that's where you can put in all the questions that you have for all these wonderful panelists. I'll just share a screen to show you what to expect in this session. So we've just started off with introductions. We'll go to a quick video that will help us set the pace and the momentum around this topical discussion. Then we'll have the panelists discussing various areas around the background and impact of COVID to the youth, the signs and symptoms to look out for, the solutions and tips, additionally, how to cope and stay connected during this very challenging period, things to prepare in case of a lockdown, and finally, COVID-19 emergency hotline numbers. I know there are a number of questions that everybody has. If you could, this would be the perfect area to just queue in all the questions that you have, and they'll be answered articulately by these wonderful guests, and then we'll have the closing remarks. So without further ado, I would like us to take a look at this video, and I do apologize if we take a bit of time to share the screen. As you know, this is new for everybody. So we have been forced to get with the times around technology. So let me start the video and let me know that you can hear it loud and clear.
Are you scared yet? They say this thing, it kills your immune system, attacks your lungs, makes it hard to breathe, and it's spreading. Spreading like wildfire, causing havoc. Your friends and family are gonna get it, if they don't already have it. It's tragic, I tell you, madness. Scientists say old people get it worse, but most get it eventually. They say this is new, but no. This has been around for centuries. Look at history, it's just a different name, a different strain. And now there's no way to contain it. It affects the rich, cool, young, old, the unknown, the famous. It's dangerous. Everyone's on edge. locked inside of their homes nervously. Borders of those countries declare state of emergencies. Grocery stores are empty. Nobody's praying in church. The world has gone to crap. No wonder toilet paper sold out first. The stock market crashed. Thousands laid off work. Hand sanitizer is going for $1 million a squirt. You better not sneeze, because no one's gonna say God bless you. They might even arrest you. I don't mean to stress you. Washing your hands obsessively and the rest will not protect you. Friends, I'm not talking about coronavirus. Now this is a virus even more deadly. The F virus. You've seen it. It's spread like an epidemic. It lives on surfaces, most commonly remote controls, TV screens, cellular phones. It makes you desperate. Say every time you scroll down your feed, you get reinfected. It invades the brain, and when it mutates, it turns into hatred and blame. China did it. No, Italy did. No, Iran. No, Spain. Oh, I didn't make it clear? The F virus, ladies and gentlemen, is fear. But don't be afraid. Despite what you hear or see on the TV, there is good news during this track. The UAE sent aid to Iran. Japan donated supplies to China for free. Written on them was a poem that said, "We are waves from the same sea." Listen to me, like every tragedy, we can let this destroy us, or we can use it to our benefit and repair relationships with our sisters and brothers, wipe away silly grudges, because when it's all said and done, all we ever really had in this world was each other. So yes, let's flatten the curve and expand our hearts. Let's social distance, boost our immune systems, be mindful of where we put our hands, but also where we put our attention. Be alert, not fearful, because the F virus is a pandemic easily transmitted. If you do contract it or its symptoms, we recommend immediately dialing the hotline of a level-headed friend. If you are exposed to your TV, change the dance station. Decontaminate your dance, laughter, and meditation. 2020 has been morbid. From Kobe to COVID, may we use these tragic moments to finally wake up to what's important. Right now, tell someone that you care for them. Yes, right now, tell them that you cherish them. If they are not in the same room, ring them up and tell them you will always be there for them. Because together is how we will rise above. The only vaccine for this F virus and every other virus is love.
So that's a very wonderful way to help us all cope in these times. Flatten the curve, physical distancing, sanitize, stay home, and stay safe. And I used physical distancing intentionally because there's been lots of questions around, should we change the wording? Is it really social distancing or physical distancing? And I think a lot of proponents are of the idea that it is physical distancing, but we strive to stay socially connected. Now, before this registering for this, I asked a few people, or actually everybody, to answer some questions on a survey. And I would love to share those results before we dive into the deeper issues about the background and the impact. And we did ask only about 6 questions around COVID-19 and its impact. And the first question was on how COVID-19 pandemic led to your job loss or salary cut. Final tally of this for the people who took, so 30 people took this test and 76 registered for this session. So out of the people who took the survey, yes, 25%, and no, 75%. And we hope that no remains stagnant, because we hope this does not affect people's day-to-day job. The second question was, are you facing both work-related and personal problems occasioned by COVID-19? And yes was at 92.8% and no was at 7%. So clearly this is a great opportunity to just address some of the issues that have been affected by COVID-19. In the third question, we did ask, in general, how would you rate your overall mental or emotional health? So we had various variations. There was excellent, very good, good, fair, and poor. And excellent had 0%, very good we had 7%, good 25%, fair 64%, and poor 3%, 3.57%. And the fourth question we asked, do you feel scared and uncertain of the future? And we had 90% say yes, 10% say no. In the last question, we did ask, in the past few weeks, has your mental health interfered with your personal or work relationship? And 60% of you said yes, and 39% of you said no. And then we did have a question on gender, just so that we can be able to figure out our audience. So female is 70% and male is 30%. We did ask about the age, and we do have people ranging between 18 to 24, a fair amount of people. The largest number of people here are between 25 to 34. And we do also have a significant amount of people who are 7% between 35 to 44 years old. So as you can see, panelists, this is an issue. It's evident that COVID-19 continues to affect our mental well-being, our psychological well-being. So without further ado, I'll ask Diana Machi to just give us a bit of background in terms of the impact of COVID-19 to the youth.
Thank you so much, Liz. And I'll just go straight to discussing some of the issues that we are facing currently. And just also to give a bit of background, whoever thought when you're crossing over to the new year this year that we'll have such discussions. There's no one, I don't think it ever crossed our minds that we are here today. You know, just the other day I was listening to an advertisement on the radio, and it was talking about people staying indoors. And I thought to myself, when I started this, I never pictured that we're going to have such discussions. And unfortunately, this has become our normal. Yeah, now it has become the new normal that we need to stay indoors. And, you know, we are constantly washing our hands. I don't think we've ever been this cleaner. Yeah, and the world has changed. And this has pushed us to accepting certain things that we didn't want, you know. We can't hang out at favorite restaurants or go and eat wherever we want to, or just our friends, yeah, or even just go to the office. This has really changed. Now we are forced to stay in. Some countries have even total lockdown, you know. There are other people who are concerned about where they're going to eat, where they're going to get their food from. And it's been a struggle, and everyone has struggled with this. I don't think we can say and sit that we can sit and say, oh, this does not mean. I think it has touched almost all of us, and yet it has affected us in different ways. And also considering there are many myths you're told about the 5G. 1 second you're told how the 5G affects COVID and how it has been, you know, manufactured in a lab. There's a lot of politics going around that. There's the issue of masks. One day you're told, oh, if you wear masks, you won't be protected. The next day, CDC says, oh, everyone should wear masks. You see, all these conversations is confusing, and it's also very scary to some people, considering also you also have other underlying issues. If you already had a mental disorder, for example, like depression, or you had anxiety issues, this just multiplies your problem. So it's become a problem to everyone. So I'll just go straight into discussing some of those impacts that it has had and directly affected the youth or the young people. So this could be issues to do with joblessness. Some of us have lost our jobs, and organizations have let us go because they're also not making money. So you see, they have to consider also their interests. So I was saying earlier also, there are very many anxiety issues, yeah. and also interpersonal problems. We've seen a rise or spike in issues with domestic violence and rape cases, and my colleague Venoranda is going to discuss more about that. Definitely this means also high levels of stress to different individuals, and what it means to stay calm. Or, you know, when we are told now, oh, stay calm, it's just like, it feels like it's just a concept that is out there, yeah? There are issues of depression. There's the fear of unemployment for the ones who are employed, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. There's the increased use of alcohol and drugs, which has had negative impact, because also, you know, this leads to low immunity. And also issues to do with self-harm and suicide, rising suicide cases. So some of these cases doesn't mean that they've already happened, but it also means that those are the anticipated things that is going to take place, yeah? And also, so I'll go straight into discussing some of the anxiety disorders. And there are many. You know, when you talk about anxiety is just, when we talk about in the mental field, when you talk about anxiety, it means different things, because there are many different disorders. So I'll just mention briefly some of them. And one of them is called GAD. It stands for generalized anxiety disorder. So this is generally where you feel you're scared by any activity. Maybe you're going out, or every activity that you take, or it becomes so extreme that you're fearful and you're very anxious in taking part in that activity. So that's why it's called generalized, because it's not specific to anything. So you might be afraid of maybe going out or staying indoors. And another one that is very common is panic attacks. So panic attacks last for a few minutes, about 4 to 5 minutes. And it's so debilitating that you can't move. All of a sudden you feel like your world is crashing, or you're going crazy. Your heart is beating so fast, you're sweating, you know, everything. It's like everything is moving around you, but at the same time, it's not moving. So you're feeling like there's loss of control of your actions, of your bodily movements, yeah? So that is panic attack, which is very, very common, by the way. And we have also something known as selective phobias. So this is like you're fearful about a specific thing. For example, animals, yeah? There are others who are scared of snakes, others who are scared of spiders. So that's why it's a specific phobia. So we have another one called PTSD. PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. This happens because of our traumatic experience that we go through, that is so, it's affecting us in our daily functions. Maybe it happened 3 months back or 6 months back. So, but it's so debilitating because you have physical symptoms, your heart is beating, your blood pressure is very high, and you're just fearful, you're having night terrors, you're anxious all the time. So it also affects your daily functions. So that is PTSD. It could be maybe you're involved in a car crash or loss of a parent. That can be very devastating. And another one, anxiety disorder is SAD, stands for seasonal affective disorder. This is not very common in Africa. This is common in the Western countries because they get to experience cold weathers, yeah? So especially because we lack vitamin, because of that lack of vitamin D, and they're forced to stay indoors most of the time. So some of them will suffer from seasonal affective disorder because of that cold weather. Another one is OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So this is where you do repetitive actions. For example, some people, especially now when we talk about COVID, we have, you're told, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands, yeah? So you end up washing your hands constantly, but this is not very maybe applicable to all of us because we have to wash our hands because of the current situation. But there are people whose lives are affected because of this obsessiveness and this compulsion. That compulsion means like you can't control, yeah? You're obsessed about it, you're thinking constantly about it. Compulsion, so you're doing it over and over again. It's a repetitive action. So those are some of the anxiety disorders that we have. And just a warning here, it just doesn't mean that, you know, I remember when I was learning about mental disorder in my class, when I was when I was in class, you know, all these things you talk about, maybe you start seeing, oh, this also talks about me. It's like, you know, everything is like someone is talking about you and you feel, oh, maybe I have PTSD. Maybe what I experience is a panic attack. You know, you start having all these thoughts in your head. So it's just a reminder to all of us that to have one or two is human and it's normal. But when you're experiencing some of these symptoms for a period of time, a long period of time, and it's getting into it, it's affecting your functions, daily routine, that you can't work, or you're having problems with schoolwork, or you're having problems at your work because of these actions, then that is when we say that maybe you have a specific disorder. But it doesn't mean that just because you're experiencing one or two symptoms that you have PTSD or you have OCD. No, it does not mean that. So some of the common, let me just do this and play from the current slide, yeah. And some of the symptoms of anxiety that we generally, and that we need to look out for in ourselves and also those around us, especially this time, is excessive worrying. You're just worried, you don't know what to do, you're just thinking, what do I do now? What shouldn't I do now? You're constantly worried. Another one is when you're feeling agitated, yeah. This because of now you start experiencing physical symptoms. You start, your palms are sweating all the time, your heart rate is high all the time, you're sweating, so you're just feeling so agitated and restless. Another one is restlessness. So you're just on edge all the time, yeah. It's like you're uncomfortable sitting in one place, that you keep on moving, and even if you kept on moving, you're not okay, so you're just restless. Another one is fatigue. You're tired. You're just so tired all the time, yeah. So you don't even know what to do, yeah, or to keep busy. When you try to keep busy, you're either not, you try to involve yourself in certain activities, then all of a sudden you realize, maybe this is not what I want to do, yeah. And another one is difficulty concentrating. You might even pick up a book or even watching a movie, then all of a sudden you're not there, yeah. You're physically there, but in your thought process is not consistent. Another one is you're irritable. Every time you're just getting annoyed with everyone around you. When they try to have a discussion with you, you're annoyed. You respond in a very rude way because of that irritability. Insomnia. Some people also lack sleep, or you might have difficulty in falling asleep or staying asleep for a very long period of time. So some of those symptoms are what some individuals may be experiencing currently. Yeah. And another common mental disorder is depression. Here, the common symptoms in adults, I'll talk about the common symptoms in adults and as well as children. So in adults, you'll see sadness, that you're sad all the time, you don't have interest in activities. The things that you used to find enjoyable, you don't find it enjoyable anymore. So you also get to experience significant weight loss over such a short period of time. You see that some individuals have lost so much weight. Yeah, you're having sleep problems. You're either sleeping too much or you're sleeping too little. And you have feelings of hopelessness. You're crying. Someone wants to have a discussion with you, or you start talking about something, and then all of a sudden you lose interest, yeah, in what you're going to, excuse me, on on some of those. Where was I? Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. So I was here on crying. So you're having a discussion with someone. All of a sudden, all of a sudden you start to cry because of, remember we talk about feelings of sadness. And also you isolate yourself. You don't want to interact with people. All your friends that you used to have fun with, you don't want that kind of fun anymore. So you just want to be indoors. Maybe you're in your bed the whole day. And some people, because also of the culture, of our cultural differences, because also we are not, we don't know some of these symptoms very well. And you see someone sleeping, you just assume that person is just being lazy, which is not true. Yeah. And you just don't have energy to do anything with life, with your friends, with your work, with everything that goes around you. You don't have the energy to do it. Yeah. And another one is loss or gain of appetite. When you talk about appetite, some people will start, because generally even when some people will say, oh, you know, when I'm stressed, I eat a lot. Yeah. Or I don't feel like eating anymore. But remember, we talked about significant weight loss. Yeah. So this follows that in the sense that you don't even get to eat any food. Maybe you used to enjoy a burger or you to enjoy chips. All of a sudden, you don't even want to eat any of those things. You don't even want to drink water. So you just want to stay in bed, not interact with anyone, not to eat anything. And then you have this that is very significant and very important that we need to talk about, is recurrent thoughts of death. And this is where suicide comes in. There are people who actually commit suicide or try to commit suicide or have that thought of wanting to die, which is very common with depressed individuals. Yeah. And that is in adults. And because the kids are different, and actually we have around this time where also kids have been forced to stay indoors with their parents. So this is for parents, that you need to look out for your kids and look out for some of these symptoms, that they'll become too attached to you. They will not want to let go. Everywhere you're going, they want to follow you around. Yeah. And also they become so demanding. 1 minute they want this, the other minute they want that. They don't even know what they want. And generally they become so angry or irritable in their activities. Yeah. So in kids, what I will recommend is for you to be there for them constantly, and to show that love. And it's a good thing. Maybe that is some of the positives that we are seeing around this COVID being indoors, is that we have more time to spend with our family, which is a good thing. Yeah. So because kids also interpret love by the amount of time we give them. So give your children as much attention as possible. When they want clarification on issues, please give relevant and precise information, because there's also a lot of stories about COVID. Maybe I also recommend, do not be watching news with your children. It can be very traumatizing for them. As adults, maybe you'll be able to process some of those things that is going on in the world, and maybe able to compartmentalize it and say, you know, this is relevant to me, or this is not important. But for kids, they take in a lot. You know, they're like a sponge. Yeah. Everything you tell them, or everything that goes on, it's like they internalize it. So it's very important to protect our kids on the kind of information that we let them listen to, or the kind of information we let them watch. And also, please remember to keep their schedules as consistent as possible. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have time to play or to be creative, but if it's time to do whatever activities, just make sure that you stick to that timetable. Because also, if you confuse them, kids very generally do very well when their timetable is very consistent and there's a schedule for all activities that they need to do. I think for now I'll stop there. Then I'll let my my colleague Venoranda continue. Or if you have any questions, please do ask. Liz, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Machi, for that very comprehensive discussion on some of the things to look out for in in adults as well as in children. We know that a lot of kids are back home. Parents don't know what to do with them, particularly young parents. And we've seen numerous videos showcasing how appreciative parents are becoming parents are becoming of teachers, because they do not know what to do with their kids, because they're constantly with them. So I really reiterate what you're saying, keeping their schedules very consistent. And I think one of the other things is to be patient with them. I know we have a lot of pressure and concerns amid the pandemic. We don't know whether we're keeping our job. We don't know. The future is very uncertain. And I remember reading a book that said there's nothing as worse as the fear of the unknown. And that is in the space we're currently in. There's something else you brought about, Machi, and you did talk about infodemic. What is the source of your information? Where are you getting the myths? How do you differentiate the myths, the facts, etc.? And it's very crucial for you to also guard yourself with the kind of information that you're getting. Go to reliable and authenticated sources of news that where you can draw that information, as opposed to, you know, lots of WhatsApps going on, lots of meets, lots of people speaking about different issues, not really from a point of evidence, but from a point of, oh, I just received this, let me also share it. There's a question that's been asked, and I think it would be a good time to take it. Has any of us, I think the panelists, gone through depression, or have you dealt with somebody who has gone through depression, and what are some of the things that help them cope with that? I don't know if you can briefly talk about that, Machi, then we go to the other presentation from Venoranda.
I don't want to preempt what Venoranda will be talking about, so maybe I will let her have the session and then answer the question, because I think she will talk about some of those coping mechanisms. Yeah, is that fine? And then if there's anything that we need to add on, we will add on that.
That's okay. So Venoranda, over to you, and thank you so much for making the time.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Liz. First, let me point this out, that it's very important for us to know and understand that having anxiety, being fearful, and having levels of uncertainty is very, very normal. So this is something that all of us are going through, and it's something that we should not disregard. It's very normal for everybody to be in that specific state. So let me jump over to my presentation. One of the things, and of course, Diana has been able to point out a number of things in terms of loss of opportunity, so I will not touch on that, but I'll go straight ahead to point out some of the impacts of COVID as it relates to sexual violence, and also as it relates to matters around sexual reproductive health and rights. I have been seeing a lot of tweets circulate online amongst young people who are saying we are struggling to access sexual reproductive health and rights information and services at the moment. I have seen an interesting article written early this morning stating that very soon condoms are going to be out of stock. It's also good for us to note that if we do a scan through of some of the health facilities, maybe within Nairobi and other counties, contraceptives are probably not available. And at this point in time, young women are finding it very difficult to also access safe abortion services. The other bad challenge that we are currently experiencing is the fact that a number of us, or many of us, believe that home is a safe place, but unfortunately, home is always not a safe place for everybody. We've seen a recent report released by the Chief Justice stating that the prevalence of rape and defilement have gone very, very high. And of course, the people who are predisposed to this are children and women. And this is a time for us to really think through what is the correlation between, you know, COVID and, you know, mental health and the issue of physical distancing. Because if I'm at home yet I am living with an abuser, then it really triggers a lot of mental illnesses, and other than that, I am exposed to so much trauma. So the recent statistics disclosed by the Chief Justice state that we've had an increased level of rape and defilement. And as at now, it stands at 35.8%, which is very, very high. That is in just the past 2 weeks. And unfortunately, the perpetrators are close relatives, others are guardians, and people living with survivors, okay? And of course, intimate partner violence is also on the reef, means the prevalences have gone very, very, very high. And one of the things that I'd want to bring out is violence has a lot of immense effects on any specific individual. And one of the effects is post-traumatic disorder, which Diana has pointed out. Of course, it exposes you to depression. And other than that, you find that people start using substances or they engage in risky sexual behavior. So it's very important for us to understand those different dynamics. A good thing to note is if you do want to identify some of the red flags, particularly when you're in an abusive relationship, one of the things that you need to take note of, if an individual seems to be controlling, that's a massive red flag. If someone is manipulative, that is also another red flag. If someone would want to probably stalk you around or do some crazy things, that is also a massive red flag. So these are just a few things that we need to take note of. And again, it's also important for us to know and understand when some of these things happen, where exactly should I go or where should I get help? And I will jump straight ahead to talk about something called resilience. It's very hard for any kind of individual to overcome any form of challenges or have the ability to bounce back and move forward. So I'll mention a quote here by a lady called Elizabeth Edwards, and she says that resilience is accepting your new reality, even if it's less good than the one you had before. You can fight it, you can do nothing but scream about what you have lost, or you can accept that and try to put together something that's good. And just to point out that the current state calls for us to be resilient. We need to ask ourselves, this has been happening. I have lost my job, my salary has been cut, I have closed down my businesses, I am in an abusive relationship, I have experienced trauma, or I have experienced this form of violence. How do I bounce back and move forward? And it's very difficult for any individual to bounce back and move forward if you do not have certain specific strategies or skills that you can use in order for you to move on. So one of the things that I'd want to point out is self-awareness. And these are the things that we take so much for granted. And I keep asking people day in, day out, do you really know who you are? Do we understand what is happening out there? Of course, we know there's COVID, we know lives are being lost, we know we are vulnerable to it, we know there's too much stigma and discrimination associated to it. But the other thing we also need to ask ourselves is, so when all those things are happening out there, what exactly is going on in my mind? Am I at a point of where I feel hopeless? Do I feel defeated? Do I feel this is going to last forever and things will not change? Do I feel like my world has been completely shattered? What am I telling Venoranda? What is Venoranda telling Venoranda is a good question all of us should ask ourselves. And then, how am I feeling? Am I sad? Am I frustrated? Am I bitter? Am I angry? And if I am, at who exactly? Okay? So these are key components of self-awareness that we need to ask ourselves. And do I understand my personality type? Am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? Venoranda, for example, is an extrovert. And I do not stay in the same place. I move. I'm always on the move. So this is a very difficult moment for me, but I have to try and replace what I have been doing in the past with other different activities because I am doing this for my sake and for the sake of other people. So self-awareness is very, very important for all of us. We really need to be in touch with ourselves and get to know and understand what exactly are we feeling and what are we telling ourselves about the situation? The other thing and the other strategy is something called positivity. And I know someone is going to ask me, at this point in time, is there anything positive about this situation? To be honest, I do not know. But in order for us to deal and to reduce our levels of anxiety, in order for us to limit us getting other different mental illnesses like depression, it's very, very key for us to remain and be positive. And one of the things that counseling teaches counselors every other time is the power of your thought process. And we have something very powerful called the cognitive triangle. It's just a triangle that has 3 different corners. And it says your thought influences your feelings, and your feelings ultimately influence your actions. So there's no way you can have a negative thought and expect to have a positive feeling and ultimately have a positive action. If the feeling is negative, definitely the actions are going to be negative. So we really have to purpose to get rid of negative thoughts and employ positive self-talk. And we need to stay positive. And as we watched the video that was introduced before we started speaking, one of the things that I loved about it is the fact that the video clearly stated that we are all in this together. And that's one of the things that needs to hold us, yeah? We are in this together. The best we can do is stay positive and tell ourselves this is going to come to an end. And just to highlight that, it's also important for us to identify spaces and individuals that can be able to trigger your thought processes or anxiety. I have been in so many WhatsApp groups and I've been going online of late, and I'm like, my God, these spaces are just too toxic. So if you feel a space is toxic for you, and it's denying you some mental well-being, or it's giving you so much anxiety, please get off that space. Get off that space. It's going to save you a lot of trouble. Another strategy, and this is the 3rd strategy, I'll talk a lot about support system. And it's very important for us at this moment to map out who are the people I value. Is it my partner? Is it my friend? Is it my mom? And for example, are we doing video chats with them? Are we talking frequently with them? So it's very key for us to maintain, as much as we are practicing physical distancing, it's very important for us to maintain meaningful connections with people who we value and people who we love. Another thing that we also need to point out is there are a lot of people who are offering mental health support and supporting survivors, and others are also supporting any young people who are struggling to access sexual reproductive health and rights information and services. And I'll mention that Mental Health 360 is providing mental health services via phone, and I have the contacts here. I can be able to share them later. Then we have hotlines like 1190 and 1195 that are offering counseling services to either people who've gone through intimate partner violence or anyone who's struggling with sexual violence related concerns. Then Youth Changes Kenya are currently having a partnership with an organization called Usikimya to offer counseling services online for sexual violence survivors. And I am aware that an organization called Antigen is trying to ensure that young people are able to access reproductive health information and services at this point in time, and when things are also very scarce. So one of the things that we have been taught growing up is when you're battling or when you're going through stuff, you suck it in and deal with that. Venoranda is saying that it is okay to ask for help. There is nothing wrong with reaching out to people and asking for help, particularly if you feel you're at a point where you're not able to help yourself. And I know this is also something I'm also learning to do. It's very difficult for many of us to allow ourselves to be vulnerable to other people. So it's very key for us to say that, to talk to ourselves and tell ourselves that, hey, it's important for me to seek help, particularly when I'm going through a difficult and a hard time. And there are people who are out there who are ready to support and help you. And note that because of the different losses and people are grieving and all those things, this is a time when people struggle with high levels of anxiety, panic attacks, trauma, and depression. I am a trained psychologist, but I was so surprised that recently I had a panic attack. I was like, wow, where is this coming from? And it's because I was just too fearful. My head could not take in what was going on and what was going around. So it's very, very key for us to reach out to people and ask for help and say, I need help here, please come in and support me. The other thing that we need to create, we need to create a new routine. I'm used to having therapy sessions with girls. I'm used to having sessions with training people all over and everywhere. I'm used to interacting a lot with people. I keep asking myself, so today, what am I waking up to do? Now that I have to stay in the house, what exactly am I waking up to do? So we have to cultivate and create new routines. And at this point, it's important for me to state that you need to identify what exactly works for you. Not everything works for everyone. There are people who, for them, meditation works best. There are people who will tell you, I cannot even close my eyes to meditate. It makes me very restless. There are people who will tell you, I'm privileged to have a laptop. I would put in some music, listen to it. I am good. I would do exercises. I would read books. I would watch movies. I have the privilege of joining up webinars like we do. I can of course afford, and I have indoor games. I can learn a new skill. I can learn a new language. I can take a walk around, and I can play a new musical instrument. So you need to identify what exactly can work for you during this time. And before you start your day, ask yourself, what are your 2 priorities for that day? And cultivate a specific routine, particularly when you wake up. I've woken up, so what am I doing before I start doing every other thing? Okay, I think for me that's very, very key. One of the struggles I have seen and had, and I'm also trying to perfect myself, is something called self-love, because I've realized many of us have not fallen in love with who we really are. And for me, this is a very good time for us to reflect and fall in love with ourselves. Be in touch with yourself and with you. Do good things to yourself. If it means wearing that beautiful dress and you're just staying in the house so that you can feel and look good, do it. For me, this is a time for people and for individuals to just bond with themselves. And I keep saying, if you love yourself, you will try as much as possible to ensure that you're eating well. Of course, overruling other different factors that can affect us along the way. You will try to see if you're able to sleep well, and you're going to do good things to yourself. And there's a quote here that I'd want to point out that says, to fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. If you do not love yourself, it's very difficult for you to invite other people to love you. And self-love is your superpower. So as we even wind up with this webinar, and as we even go on with the discussions, I think these are important things that we should take away with, that it's very hard and it's very difficult for other people to love you if you're not loving yourself. And just to finalize on my presentation, a few tips: ensure you have adequate supply of drugs if you have a pre-existing illness, okay? Stock up condoms, contraceptives, if possible, and know where to call in case you suspect you have COVID. Many of us know the 719 number to call. So we need to have these details with us, and we need to spread a lot of love and positive energy and not hate. This is not time for us to hate on each other. We need positive vibes. We need a lot of love around in order for us to survive. And for those who have young kids around, it's also important for us to take note that at times young people particularly, and also children, express depression differently. There are those who there are those who will at some point have meltdowns and cry a lot. There are those who are going to start engaging in a lot of antisocial behaviors. And
I think we lost you for 2 seconds. Hi, Venoranda. I think we lost you, but Venoranda pretty much wrapped up her session on the things that we need to do, which is really bond with yourself, eat well, sleep, do good, and be good to yourself as well. She had gone through the tips, and she had shared where you can connect with her foundation, which is Youth Changes Kenya. You're back? Sorry, we lost you for a bit. So you can just wind up what you were saying. Hello, Venoranda, can you hear us? Hello? Hello? Okay, that's fine. As Venoranda is getting settled, I'll leave this particular slide because there are a few people on the chat are mentioning, please do share with us the contacts. These are the contacts that you can reach out to.
can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. And then we lost you. So we'll just carry on with some
Hi,
questions.
can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
I think
We lost you again. Maybe, Machi, you could answer a question that had been asked on what are some of the coping mechanisms when you find out you are depressed?
Okay, yeah, that's the question you'd asked earlier, and I'd like to answer that question. It depends on the severity of your depression. Yeah, if it's severe, then it means that you need to get medical attention, where you will be given medication, or you can decide to go to a counselor or a psychologist, where you'll be able to get therapy using different therapy techniques such as cognitive behavior therapy, psychodynamic therapy, or interpersonal therapy. Now, this is for the therapist, yeah. But if you go to a therapist, then you'll be able to get that help. But I will also want to emphasize the importance of having social support around you. That is key to eradicating any mental disorder around us. When we are sick, when we are physically sick, we always seek help, or you have someone to take care of you, to give you food, or to even bathe you to some extent. I think we still need that social support even when we're mentally ill. We need to have someone we can trust, that we can talk to. We can talk to a friend, a close friend, or a relative, or someone, even a spiritual counselor. Yeah, we can go to church. Other people will pray, will say, oh, prayers work for me, or meditation works for me. So whichever works for you, pick what works for you. And this is the emphasis I will say again and again. To have that social support around you is key. Very, 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 very important. It's crucial that you have that social support around you. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Machi, for that. I think we lost, but she's trying to get back. Thankfully, she had wound up her presentation. She had such fantastic insights. And it's about how do you cope, which is just in addition to what Machi has talked about. Guys, I cannot reiterate further. They need to be self-aware. They need to be positive. They need to have a support system that Machi has insisted on, and having a routine and having self-love. So I'll read some of the other questions that have been put here. And one of the questions was, can you gain weight because of being very depressed?
Mm-hmm. it's possible. Remember, one of the symptoms we talked about was loss of appetite or gain of appetite. Yeah. So when you're eating too much, definitely you can gain weight. But sometimes even eating itself, because of gaining weight, can also cause depression. So it could be either way. It's both sides. Maybe because of eating, because of underlying issues, other interpersonal conflict may be going on in your family that can cause depression in you. Then one of the symptoms manifests itself as you wanting to eat all the time, can make you add weight. Or the fact that you're adding weight because of that self-image, poor self-image you have of yourself, can make you go into depression. So it's the chicken and egg situation. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a comment from Dr. Andile Biela. Thank you so much, Dr. Andile, for joining us all the way from South Africa. And he says, hi, Liz and panelists. Thank you for this great initiative, great presentation, Diana and Venoranda. My suggestion is that you should integrate these presentations and submissions into a position paper or brief, which can be presented for consideration to our respective governments. Remember that such important conversations, unfortunately, do not reach the greater population in our countries owing to many challenges. These are important discussions and we should try to ensure that they reach a wider audience. And I completely agree with you, Doc, and that's something we're trying to work on. And this is a question that we had actually discussed before the starting of this particular session. How do we reach out to people who are not necessarily in the urban areas, who have the luxury of having internet or access to webinars? How do we reach out to people further to the rural areas? So I think that's a really fantastic suggestion. Wahome says, thank you, Wahome, for joining us. Learning, what he says, his key learning is what we're doing for our kids and for our family. There is a question here, and I don't know whether it's Venoranda or Machi that can take it. Maybe Venoranda, since you deal with a lot of sexual reproductive health issues, there's someone who's asking, how can one deal with sexual addiction issues during this period, now that we're all staying in? Is it really a problem, and how can one get help?
Okay, I think that's a valid question, and of course it's very difficult for me to give quick tips or quick fix right now, because an addiction is something that is treated over a long period of time, and an assessment and a diagnosis needs to be done first. But ideally, what can work for the moment is for you to try and create alternative activities, just to make sure that your mind is preoccupied and you're engaging in doing other different things. But in case you'd want that issue discussed or addressed further, I would request that you reach out to me directly. Write me an email via youthchangerskenya@gmail.com, then we can be able to pick up the conversation from there.
Thank you so much, Venoranda. Maybe to the last question, or rather a suggestion by Fiona, which was we should actually be talking a lot more about physical distancing, but social connection, which is something that we did highlight in the beginning of this conversation. And yes, social distancing. Machi, Venoranda, any last words around that?
Around social distancing?
Yes. Should we be focusing on social distancing, or the wording should change to physical distancing as opposed to social distancing? We ought to stay socially connected.
Exactly. For me, connections are really key. And of course, at this point in time, it's very difficult for us to be disconnected from each other. So I'd rather say that we focus on physical distancing and ensure that we keep the social connection, so that our well-being is equally activated, and we know that at some point there are people who are around us, regardless of how far they are, they value and and they understand and they know exactly what is going on. So keeping the connections are a great resource in terms of building resilience. So we should not disregard that, but follow the government directives and ensure that we maintain physical distancing.
Thank you so much. As we wind up, I want to say a big thank you to our wonderful, wonderful panelists. Remember, this is a first series of very many other themed different series for the youth. I'd like our panelists, starting with Machi, then Venoranda, just giving a few last words.
Thank you so much for the interactive session. I guess some of us have picked very important skills that we're going to use. That this is just not a place where you can just sit and feel like, oh, I've made use of my 1 hour and I've listened to a webinar. Please practice some of these things some of these tips that we've shared. And if you feel like you need help, please reach out to relevant people. And yeah, keep positive, be self-aware of what's happening around you. And remember, you can have two thoughts at the same time. Yeah, like you can be thinking something negative and something positive. So if you're also self-aware, you're able to pick up the good thoughts. So concentrate on that, concentrate on being positive. Please hydrate, drink enough water, exercise if you can. There are very many YouTube videos that you can watch. Eat right. This is not the time to binge watch and to sit in front of the TV the whole day. You can make use of your time. That hobby, this is the time to perfect that hobby that you like doing, that could even earn you a living. Yeah, don't feel like this is the time that everything is in lockdown. Just because there's physical lockdown doesn't mean even your mind has shut down. Yeah, it's the time to make use of this time. Please stay positive, make use of your time, and connect with people that you haven't connected with in a long time. This is the time to scroll through your phone and reach out to that distant relative or that distant friend that you haven't been in touch for a long time. Is a time to connect. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. My parting shot would be, please remember self-love is your superpower. Let's stay positive. We are in this together. If you need help, it is okay to ask for help. I am repeating that again, and make sure that at least we prepare ourselves to, bounce back and move forward. And thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. There's somebody just before we log off who'd asked whether it's possible to have these slides shared with the different people who'd logged on. Is it possible to get those? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So thanks so much, everybody, for your time, for the 1 hour we've spent talking about this very important topic. This is a series that will be having different thematic areas. I know this is a huge focus, so we'll have Machi and Venoranda back here to speak to us. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a lovely, lovely afternoon. Please do stay safe and practice the physical distancing, staying safe at home, keep your kids engaged, reach out to different people, and stay resilient. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.